All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another day of fun with database management systems. And so one thing, I got a number of emails from you guys yesterday, all requesting the group project topics. Some of you have gotten emails this morning. I'm working through them to make sure that I'm doing the whole first come, first served on some of the topics. A few of the topics now have two groups. So now have two groups assigned to them, such as the hotel management system and the music library. Both have two groups that have already requested them. If your group leader did not receive a response back from me yet, it means it just means that I haven't gotten to that email yet. Okay, so like I said, I've got a number of emails I'm working through, making sure that there's no that the project isn't covered too many times by too many groups, and there's 23 groups, so we're kind of, I got to work through one by one. All right, so but I should have that done this morning before lunch. So be looking for that there. Oh, one other thing is I got to plug in my computer. It's about to die. All right. One other thing is I did get one question from one of the groups about contacting me, because for each of you, I wrote back a message saying, who the group leader was, or at least as far as I understood it, and that I would be in communication with them. What I really want to do with this is make it kind of like a real world project team. And what that means is that your group leader will be in contact with the customer. Okay, so I've worked on projects where the programmers we all had contact with the customer, and that was not a good situation. So all the programmers on the team had the email addresses and the phone numbers of all of the people on the customers team, and all of them also had all of our contact information, and it was just a mess. Honestly, it was just a mess. And I know in this situation, I'm the only person that's a customer, so it's kind of a little bit different. But what this is hopefully going to what this hopefully going to simulate is you have someone that is the point of contact for your group, and that person is going to act like a project manager. And so that person is going to be in charge of getting in touch with me, the customer, to find out what I want, what I'm expecting, maybe even what are the things that I didn't like, because the truth is that for all the groups, you're going to submit this this halfway point version of the project, kind of a design of the project around a little after the midterm. I'm going to come back with things I didn't like about it. No matter what, I'm going to find something. Okay, probably what it'll probably be is something that, I really wish you would have done this in addition, something like that. It does not mean that your first design was wrong. It doesn't mean there was anything bad with your first design. It is just a truth of the field that we work in, that we oftentimes we just can't please everyone. And oftentimes customers come back with additional requests or requirements that we weren't prepared for initially. It's part of the field we work in. Okay. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do with that. And I look forward to all the projects, and I look forward to all you guys working hard to produce something that looks great. All right, let's go ahead and get into our lesson for today. Let's see. So we're going to complete the database development slides today. There we go. Let's see. We're going to complete the database development slides today. But first, let's see if this works. There we go. All right. First, of course, someone from our history needs to tell us some words of wisdom. And today, our dear friend, Albert Einstein, tells us that imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, imagination encircles the world. So it's not just about what you know, it's about what we can think of and what we can do with the knowledge that we have, right? So, as I tell people a lot of times, it's one thing to know, how to do something, but whoever it was that was the first person that thought up the idea of a smartphone, it probably has impacted the world in recent years more than just about anyone else, right? But at some point, someone said, what if there's a better way to communicate than having this corded, this wired phone, right? Of course, even Alexander Graham Bell, who's listed as the inventor of the original telephone itself, even he said, what if there's a better way to communicate across distances than having to send a letter? They should be hanging up. Hold on just a moment, please. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's see. So Albert Einstein. So imagination, right, is key to our future, to our success. We have to be able to think beyond what exists to what could exist. And if we're going to, that's how we're going to get out of this pandemic. That's how we're going to solve all kinds of the world's problems and life's problems, is by thinking beyond the solutions that already exist. All right. This is where we left off. All right. The kind of an overview of the life cycle of, they say database system development. As I said yesterday, really, if you just take this word, database out and just say system, this really is kind of a system development life cycle. This is a general idea for any system. Doesn't matter if there's a database or not. Okay. There are, I guess, a few things like the data conversion line item here that may apply specifically to database systems, and the DBMS selection as well. But really, in terms of planning, requirements, design, implementation, testing, that's all part of any system lifecycle. Okay, so if you're like me, you might work better with a visual of how this might work. So this is kind of the way that the life cycle might look visually, is a phase. We have a phase that leads to another phase, that leads to another phase. Now, if you've taken software process, or if you're going to take software process or software engineering, we would refer, this looks a lot like what's called a waterfall process. There is a bit of iterative nature to this that makes it not a straight waterfall process. But basically the idea is pretty straightforward. The way they've laid it out here is that one phase kind of leads into another. Okay, may not be always the best way. There's lots of different ways to develop a system, lots of different process that we can use to develop a system. Waterfall is just probably the easiest one to implement, which is why it gets referenced a lot. All right, okay. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to plan our system. Right? We need to, before we start creating tables, before we start even collecting data or anything like that, is we need to plan what it is that we are trying to develop. And this is kind of a non-tech thing. This is definitely a non, well, it is a non-technology based thing. But one of the things that we want to do is get a mission statement. Let me, what I do every year, and I forgot to pull it up today. Okay, let me share with you here a couple of mission statements. So the idea of a mission statement is what is this thing for? Right. So if it's a database application and it's for a particular company, this may be related to our company's mission statement. Right. And the idea of what a mission statement is supposed to be is it's supposed to be a core purpose for whatever it is we're doing. If it's a company, if it's a database, if it's a user interface system, you know, whatever it is, it's supposed to be something that's core to who we are and what we're doing. And so every time that we now have an activity, every time that we do something, right, we come back to that mission statement and say, does this fit into our mission statement? Okay, so without looking it up, don't Google search this, but I'm going to ask a few mission statements of some big companies that exist out there. All right, what do you think Google's mission statement is? What do you think Google's mission, Google.com, what do you think their mission is? Just kind of throw some ideas into the chat, or even open up your microphone and say it out loud, either way. Why does Google exist according to Google? Like, what do they say is their reason for existing? Okay, that's good. Connect all people, yeah. Better world is a good idea. It's a bit broad. Remember one thing. Okay, one thing about that, Murat. That's good. I like your like that you're first, but also a mission statement isn't. It's not so specific to each individual activity that we do, but it is kind of like, okay, what part of what specifically are we trying to do? Let me say, like a mission statement for this course, the mission statement for this course would be related to database knowledge, but really it would also be something about trying to help students learn how to analyze and design a system using database technology, right? And so really the core of what I'm trying to do is get you guys to understand how to analyze and design a system, right? It doesn't, I want you to be able to do that with the database, but I really want you to be able to do that with other types of systems as well. So I want you to use the tools that I'm going to give you this semester to be able to analyze other systems as well. Okay. Yep. Okay. So make searching easier. Yeah. Reach everyone and provide knowledge. Most fast searching. Yeah. So, or you're picking up on something that I often tell people. We know that Google, it may not be part of their mission statement, as we'll find out in just a second, but one of the things that they find important is being fast. And the reason we know that is, let's see, I'll show you. It doesn't show it on this search. It doesn't show it. Oh, it shows it on this other one. Okay. One thing that we'll see on the second one that I'll ask you guys about is Google, whenever you do a search, what's one of the things it shows you? It shows you how fast it gave you those results, right? So we know that fast is important to Google, but what we'll see as I share my screen now is it's not part of their mission statement, which was surprising to me. Okay, so here we say, what is Google's mission statement? Google says about themselves that our company mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That's why search makes it easy to discover a broad range of information from a wide variety of sources. Yeah. So we can also see this visually. They have an image here. If we can pull it up. What? I don't want that. Yeah, so organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. All right. So notice this doesn't say anything. You know, the interesting thing is some of the stuff this doesn't talk about, this mission vision statement. It doesn't talk about email, does it? It doesn't talk about Hangouts. It doesn't talk about Google Classroom. Right? It doesn't specifically mention those, but is email part of the world's information? Yes. Is Google Classroom part of the world's information? Yes. So their mission is to organize that information to make it easily accessible, universally accessible and useful, right? So they want to be able to give us information, give the world information and make it accessible. And the whole point of the organize is if you have the world's information organized well, then it's easily searched. Right? That's one thing we'll talk about with the database stuff here. We'll talk about indexes, how to organize your database to make it easily accessible. That's normalization and indexes. We'll talk about to make it easily accessible. All right, so that's Google. Okay, let's talk about another really big company you may have heard of, Amazon. So here I have on this other tab the Amazon mission statement. I've searched for it. What about Amazon? What are they trying to do? Okay, easier and cheaper shopping. Yeah, they're about shopping. They're about products. All right. Anything else? Does Amazon do anything else besides just shopping and products? Tanana, we're asking, what is Amazon's mission statement? So we talked through Google's mission statement here. What do you think Amazon's? If I said, what is Amazon's mission? What are they trying to do? What is it their core trying to do? Okay. Worldwide shopping and delivering easier. Yeah. Cloud computing storage. Yeah. So or you're picking up on Amazon doesn't just work with products. They also provide web services, right? They also provide lots of other services as well. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Amazon says that their mission statement is. All right. So they say we aim to be Earth's most customer-centric company. Our mission is to continually raise the bar of customer experience by using the internet and technology to help customers find, discover, and buy anything and empower businesses and content creators to maximize their success. Now, you know what I noticed? There was nothing about wireless headphones in here. Right? There was nothing about books. There's nothing about movies, right? Because Amazon's not necessarily focused on a particular type of product. Amazon started out as a book company, right? They started out as a place that you could go and buy books, right? You could buy textbooks, novels, whatever, and order them. And then when ebooks started becoming really popular, they developed the Kindle device, right? And then, as of now, they have lots of web servers. They're one of the largest web hosting companies in the world. I think they may be the largest now. But notice that their mission doesn't say anything about particular products or even particular types of products like books or anything like that. But what their mission is to help consumers, buyers, find, discover, and buy anything. And so if you think about it, their web services division, their web hosting, is part of this mission, because web services is going to help their consumers find things, right? Discover. Well, how do you help someone discover something that they might want to buy? Well, ads, suggestions. How I don't know how often you go on Amazon, but some of my family loves to go on Amazon and look for products. And one of the things is what do you get when you buy something? Down at the bottom it says, oh, customers who bought this also bought this other stuff, or customers who looked at this product also looked at these other products as well, right? And that's helping you to discover things that you might not know about. All right. And so their mission, so everything that Amazon does, it's web hosting, it's Kindle, ebooks, music. I have the Echo devices here. I have an Echo device here in my house. Even all of these products, all of these things that Amazon does are all related to their mission statement in some way. So it always comes back to the mission statement. So we want to make sure that our mission statement is focused enough that we don't be so general as, our mission statement is to create world peace, right? Well, okay, well, but how, right? So you don't want to make it so general that it's meaningless, but also remember that you don't over focus into being specific about what Amazon doesn't go into, like what type of products they're going to sell, right? They could sell anything, but they're also trying to help people find and discover those things, right? And so that's how they're going to incorporate things like web services and other tools like that. Okay, yeah, I mean this Alexa stuff is getting so crazy. I have a friend that has Alexa in his car. I'm like, why do you need Alexa in your car? Anyway, so think about what a mission statement is. It's about what the core of your company or organization is trying to accomplish, is what they're trying to do. It will include some things about, what types of things you might be using in order to achieve that. So using internet and technology, right? So it's going to be kind of a little bit focused, but not so focused that you leave out. How can I put this? I'm having a hard time wording it well, but I think you guys probably are getting the idea of that of what a mission statement should look like. Okay, and I encourage you, some of your favorite companies out there, any company that's successful these days will have some type of mission statement, because they always need to have something. They need to have some core of who they are, what their company value is, that they can take to their employees and to their customers and their investors, and they can say, this is our core, is what we're doing promoting what we are trying to accomplish. So every time is like, so if a employee says, hey, I think we should do this as well, the company will say, well, is that part of our mission, right? So if Amazon says, somebody at Amazon says, I think that we should, I don't know, I'm trying to, I think that we should create an email account. I think we should create email accounts like an email service like Google has, like Gmail. It's like, well, okay, is that going to help our consumers find, discover, and buy something? Well, might, but it just doesn't seem to fit a whole lot into our mission, does it? Right? Whereas at some point somebody said, hey, I think what we should do, I think that we should create a fleet of drones that will deliver products to people. Well, that could help empower businesses to maximize their success. Right? So then if it fits into the mission, we can incorporate it, but then there's other parts that they'll analyze, like cost and time, to determine whether or not it's worth the value. Okay, so there's more than just, does it fit? Can we fit it into our mission somehow? There's also, can we feasibly do it in a way that makes sense? All right. So I spent enough time on that. But like I said, I encourage you to look into your favorite companies, look for mission statements of your favorite companies, and see what they believe their core identity is. And I think it might surprise you what some of those companies, I'll tell you, Google and Amazon, when I first looked into their mission statements, it surprised me a little bit, because it seemed like there were things that they were including that as part of their mission that I didn't really understand. Like, I did not understand, why is Amazon a web hosting company? But then when you read their mission statement, it becomes clear how they're incorporating their web services as part of their mission. Right? Okay. So again, the mission statement wants to clarify purpose. Right? And we want to understand, how do we get towards what our solution is. Okay. All right. Now, once we have a mission statement, then we can say, okay, what are some of our objectives? These would be tasks, right? These would be particular tasks that get us from we don't have our mission completed to we want to get our mission completed. Okay. All right. It's kind of dividing up the mission into, now what do we do? I don't know why that's. Where were we? Oh, database planning, right? So we need to plan. How will we get the data? What should we get? What documentation should we get? This could be like user guides. Are we going to need a user guide for our user interface? Are we going to need an ER diagram? This is when it says what necessary documentation will be needed, this is documentation that we will create. So data might be documentation that the customer provides us, right? But the documentation that we create will also, we need to plan out, okay, what all will we need to create? And how the design and implementation should get there. How should we get from, again, no database to a fully realized, ready to go database? All right. Again, when we talked about the system definition, we talked about this yesterday, is what are the scope and boundaries? Because again, there are things that maybe Tirana, actually the customer will be me for your project. So the scope and boundaries of the database is the idea that just because something may seem kind of related to our system doesn't mean that we need to design it. Okay, so the example that I used yesterday is, I think it was wireless headphones, right? So Amazon sells wireless headphones. I think the example I gave yesterday was not Amazon, but Hepsiburada, right? And Hepsiburada sells wireless headphones. I know because I bought a pair, right? And here's the thing. Does Hepsiburada need to know anything about the way that these wireless headphones are designed? No. They don't need to know anything about the way they're designed. Right? They need to know maybe some specifications like size and what else? Maybe range. So certain aspects of them, yeah. But they don't need to be involved in the internal workings of how the wireless headphones work. Right? So that would be outside of the scope of a database for Hepsiburada. Okay. Some other things that we might want to do is might want to define what certain roles might be. And again, we're going to get a lot of this information from the existing system if there is one. So most systems, most database systems are not ones that are created from nothing. They're not just brand new database systems that haven't existed before and now we're creating them. A lot of them are simply upgrades of something that already exists. So again, my second job I had was a data conversion company. Well, we created our own user interface, and the company that we worked for, that our customer, had an existing system, but it was just such a mix of stuff. Like some of their sites used Excel spreadsheets. Some of their sites used Microsoft Access for the database. Some of their sites used Notepad documents, right? And so we had one of the things that we had to do was for each site, we were tasked with converting their data into our database system, our Oracle database system. All right, but so what we got from them was information like, okay, what kind of roles do you have? What kind of users do you have? That kind of stuff. So we got that information from them from their documentation, and we incorporated it into our system. Okay. Again, one of the things is what we're talking about when we talk about having these roles is we want to understand, okay, who should have access to certain parts of the database. So if we see it visually, it'll look something like this, maybe like a Venn diagram where you have, this is the database itself, this larger square is the kind of the whole system that exists, right? And within the database, within the data that exists, you might have different users will see different parts or have different types of access. And this could be what they can see. This could be what they can change. Remember, we talked about granting update access to certain fields, to certain columns, right? And so you also see there's some overlap between some users, right? You might have a managerial user that has a particular access, right? Notice that very few users are going to need access to the entire database. And for very large systems, that's going to be the case, right? You won't want to have you won't want to have many users that have access to do anything with all parts of the system, right? Say, for example, even like one column that might exist in a database table would be representative of your password, a user password column. You would only want the user themselves to be able to change their password, so that you might need to have some type of restriction that only the password field can only be changed by certain people, that kind of thing, right? All right. So we've planned it. We've kind of we've defined the system. You know, what about getting requirements, right? What about collecting information to understand what our users' requirements are? Right? There's lots of different ways to getting requirements. We'll talk about how to, in the, not this set of slides, but the next, I believe, we will talk about how to gain access to documentation and how to get requirements of the system, some of the different ways we can do that, right? But we need to be able to understand how to use the fact-finding techniques and how to gain knowledge about the system to understand what the requirements of the system are. And the mission statement is going to be part of this, right? Because there might be sometimes that we get some data, some documentation of an existing system, and we say, hey, how does this fit into your mission statement? And the answer comes like, well, it really doesn't. And you're just like, okay, well, I don't know if we need to be doing this anymore. You may end up having, as part of a conversion to a database system, is you may end up getting rid of aspects of the existing system. It could have, you may add new aspects. You may say, hey, you know, this is part of your mission statement, but you guys haven't been doing X, you haven't been doing this, maybe you should be, and that could come out of it as well. But the idea is we're trying to analyze, okay, what are the main requirements that we're trying to, what are the requirements of the database system, so that we know as we design and as we develop and implement the database itself, we always have something to go back to, the requirements. We can always go back to the requirements. Okay, are we satisfying the requirements? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Okay. So there's three main approaches, and we'll finish up this discussion and then have our break. There's three main approaches to how to analyze the system with multiple user views. Okay, so remember, this is if we have different types of users that all have a different view, a different what they get to see of the database. There's three main approaches. There's a centralized and a view integration, and then a combination of both. So we'll go over the centralized and view integration, and the combination just kind of combines the two. Okay, but the centralized approach is we say, okay, we're going to analyze the requirements for each user view. Right? We're going to merge those requirements into a single set, an overall set of requirements. Then we're going to build our data model representing all user views, all requirements, okay, into the design stage. Visually, that would look like this, okay, where we have a user view 1, a user view 2, a user view 3. Each of those maps onto a set of requirements. So user 1's requirements, user 2 requirements, user 3. Now these aren't necessarily individual users. This could be types of users. This could be manager role. This could be supervisor role. This could be employee role, right? So then we take all of these requirements and we put them all together. There might be some overlap between the two, right? There might be some overlap between two different types of users of what they require the system to be able to do. Okay? But once we have all the requirements put together into one neat set of requirements, we then use that to map it into a design. Okay, we'll talk about what an ER model is in future weeks, but if you guys know UML, ER is kind of like a UML. All right. So we create our ER model and our other information, our supporting documentation, and then that results in our database system. Okay, so we take our requirements, build them all into one overall set of requirements, build our design off of that. And so that's one approach. The view integration approach is we take each set of requirements, right, and we keep them separate. We create a data model to design each set of requirements, and then we merge the designs themselves into an overall design. So visually that would look like this. Okay. You have, again, our 3 different types of users. Each comes with their sets of requirements. We design a database if only user 1. If we only had user 1, what type of database would they need? Well, that's what this would represent. If we only had user 2, what kind of database would they need? And then user 3, same thing. Okay. So we design a database as if user 1 was the only user at all, as if user 1's needs were our entire database system. Okay. Now notice that none of these 3 results in an actual database itself, right? We're not actually implementing this. We were just designing this as if it was necessary. And then we take our 3 designs and merge them into one overall ER model and documentation, and that results in our database system. Okay, so the difference is, let's see if I can go back. Okay, difference is merge requirements into an overall system versus each requirement gets a subsystem that would the sub-design that the 3 designs or the multiple designs get merged into an overall design. Okay. And I'm sure one or more of you are probably in your head thinking, okay, well, which one should I use? Which one's better? Okay. And the answer is it depends. Okay. The thing that I keep coming back to, and I think is very important for engineers to understand, is that we don't deal with right and wrong. We don't deal with questions and answers because there is not one correct answer to every problem. Some database systems will be better designed using the centralized approach. Some database systems will be better designed using a view integration approach. It just depends on the nature of your system and the nature of how it's going to be used and how it needs to be used. Okay, I would say, generally speaking, if you have a lot of overlap between the 3 user views, let's say you had 3. Let's say you had 3. If you have a lot of overlap where each of the designs kind of looks the same, then what you would want to do is probably merge the requirements first. That way you're not designing the same thing, essentially the same thing multiple times. If there's not a lot of overlap, if each of them is very distinct, has a lot of distinction in how they're going to use the system, then maybe developing your own systems on their own, designing your own system on their own, and then merging those would be a better approach. But really, it just depends. Okay. All right. So I pulled you over a little bit, so let's do 9:32 for coming back from our break, and then we will continue our discussion then.